Hey, welcome to the No Guts, No Gain podcast. This podcast is dedicated to help you navigate the journey of buying a Sandler franchise. So whether you've just started the investigation or you're knee-deep into the decision process, we've got you covered. Hi, I'm Dave Mattson, Executive Chairman and President of Franchising here at Sandler. In each episode, I'm interviewing a Sandler franchisee who is in your shoes. Now, maybe they were investigating 2 years ago or 2 months ago, but they're gonna share their experiences, their insights, the questions that they had when they were sitting in your chair. The goal of the podcast is to provide you valuable information and firsthand accounts from their perspective that will help you in your decision-making process for you and your family. So sit back, relax, and get ready to hear from those who've already jumped into entrepreneurship with a Sandler franchise. Hey, thanks everybody for joining the No Guts, No Gain podcast. So today we've got a special treat because we're joined by Clint and Heather out of Winnipeg, who is a husband-wife team doing the Sandler business together. And that's certainly one of the questions that we get all the time is, can I bring in my kids? Can I work with my spouse? Is this something I have to do on my own? And so we've invited Clint and Heather today to kind of just share their journey with us here today and hopefully answer some of the questions as you try to decide whether Sandler is a good choice for you in your future. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So why don't we start off a little bit by just give us the background. So how long you've been in the business, a little background, like, hey, I came from this industry, things like that. And we'll just kind of move into some of the topics that I wanted to share with the audience today.
Sure. Shall I take that one, dear? So when I came into the business, I'd spent a number of years in the corporate world, got into mid-level management positions. I think I'm kind of a typical story where I didn't appreciate what the organizations that I worked for were about or how we were moving forward. And they kept getting bought out and in a telco industry. And I wasn't loving it.
Okay.
I was starting to lose a lot of the drive to go to work and to attain things that I know I could attain. When I kind of started to burn out, we took a bit of a drastic step in the world that we kind of closed off everything here in Winnipeg, and we actually sold our house and we went and lived in the Caribbean on a yacht for a year.
Wow.
So that's kind of not normal, but we had to change something. And when I came back to Winnipeg, when we were back here with our friends, I was a little lost. And when I was lost, I eventually came across Sandler. I had done Sandler when I was about 25 years old. So I was a little bit familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And I needed something new. And the more I investigated it, the more it was right for me coming back and creating a new future for me and my family.
Well, first, let's sit back for a minute or two. Kudos to you at that age, because you could have easily just said, maybe I'm burned out on the industry and I don't want to do the telco thing again, right? I've lost control of my destiny. They keep being bought out. I don't really know what next year is going to look like. And you just kind of lost that juice. You could have gone into a different industry and just spent the rest of your career doing that. But you decided to be, as a family, being entrepreneurs. You guys decided to do your own thing. So kudos to you. And I think a lot of people are in that spot. Do I go right back in and just keep my head down for another 10, 15 years? Or if I'm going to do it, like, now's the time. Like, now's the time if we're going to do it, which sounds like that's kind of where you are. Now's the time. If we're going to do it, now's the time.
Better take the step. And it was tough to look at my colleagues and see that they had done that path and know that I just couldn't see myself continuing and functioning for another 15, 20 years in that world.
Yeah, I get it. So, and also, by the way, I know everyone's saying it, but a year, come on now. That's awesome. You guys took a year off, you did your thing. That's awesome. I think we're all trying to work like dogs to get there. When we're 80, we'll try to do what you guys did when you enjoyed it. So kudos to you both for that. So as you came into the business, now, well, let me stop back. That's Clint's story. Heather, were you working at the time as well? Or were you full-time mom? What were you doing at the time that Clint made the decision, or you all made the decision Clint should do a Sandler franchise?
Well, I was, before we went to the Caribbean, I was working for a not-for-profit organization working with refugees. And then Clint did say yacht, and so yacht sounds quite large. It was only a 50-foot boat. So living on a boat with each other for a year obviously has its challenges. But when we came back, I did end up working for another not-for-profit organization. But eventually it ended up being quite busy for Clint. And so we lived together on a yacht. So we thought, well, we could do this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can imagine when you heard yacht, you thought shower, there's going to be this bedroom suite over here. Occasionally some person with a white outfit comes in with breakfast, all that stuff, right? No, no. Now that you've taken Sandler, you'll know the questioning technique. Well, when you say yacht, Clint, what exactly does that mean, right? So, okay, so let's fast forward. Now, how long have you been in the business?
Just over 5 years.
Okay.
It was, you come in and you had to build something from scratch, but it's been an incredible journey of learning and discovering new things.
So talk to us a little bit about, you started, and obviously we take you through initial training about things that you need to focus in on. At what point in time, like what happened that you said, I need somebody? Was it that you ran out of time? There's just a ton of things that you didn't like to do. Like what was that spark that said, Heather, I need some help here?
I think I remember a day we were sitting on our deck in our house that we were trying to fix, and we had started fairly strong. So I think I was pretty fortunate. I had a few people that introduced me to others that would make decisions. I had a couple clients that I brought on. So I had one larger corporation that I was just figuring out, how do I train and coach this group? I had another Sandler class running, and I actually had a group of people. So twice a week I was training somebody, and I felt pretty fortunate that we started to have revenue come in fairly quickly after we bought our franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was pretty good at networking. I was pretty good at going out and finding people that I could work with and bringing them in board. I had some initial kind of amateur luck at making that happen. And I quickly started to realize that there's a lot of things that I don't really know how to do. As a new business owner, I never run books. I had never done simple things like run a marketing campaign. I was starting to feel that even my organization around what I was doing for the clients I was working with was going to be at risk because I wasn't quite sure how to get myself set up and running. So I was starting to feel a lot of stress early on, like just a few months in, it seemed to be working, and I didn't know what I was doing all at the same time. So it was kind of a scary time. And when we sat down, I don't know if you remember that, but she was working at a job and not loving the not-for-profit she was working at the moment. And, we were drawn in different directions, and we realized there was a win-win at that moment.
Nice. So if I, just for the newer people, as an entrepreneur, you're juggling a lot of balls that you probably didn't have to juggle before because somebody else did them for you, right? Like you could definitely throw up the sales ball and the training ball and you'll catch them. It's all the other ones that kind of just fell to the floor for a while, right? And you know that saying, Clint, production solves all problems, and it does to a certain extent, but after a while, you got to pick up some balls here, right?
Yeah.
And so that made sense. So Heather was like, hey, I'm working, but I don't love it. She's probably feeling the same way that you felt in telco, right? She's now feeling what you felt. And so what happened? Like, who's doing what now? Like, what was that transitioning look like? And Heather, what are you doing day in and day out? Did you start doing something and now you're doing something different, or give us the journey?
You learn as you go. I'm no expert in bookkeeping, that's for sure. And, but you learn as you go. I do the marketing, the social media, the bookkeeping, the organization with the clients. Knowing DISC now, we have learned through DISC with each other personally and professionally, who is stronger at what. And, so I am definitely stronger at the compliance and the organization, and he's a lot better at the networking and getting out there, being the face of the organization.
So you were doing, if I put it into my words, you were doing all the things necessary to run the business, but minus the I guess initial client facing stuff. That would have been Clint.
Yeah.
And then really helping him scale, really, in fairness, you were scaling the business because you were making sure that he was focused on what he did best, which is go talk to net new and talk to customers. Is that about right?
I'll also add that, at the beginning, I was doing all the training kind of in the small training rooms, but now it's more of a collective where we do some of these things together. So, well, really? Heather hasn't decided to do the training, and she could at any moment. She comes to the class, and we have a little bit of a connection between the two of us in front of our clients, and our clients sometimes appreciate that closer relationship that we've got as we're working with them.
Fun banter back and forth.
Yeah. What's your statement when I make you introduce yourself?
I'm the brains and Clint's the legs.
and obviously that's not true.
It's not true. She's being gracious.
Yep.
She's being gracious. So I'm going to go back to a different part of your statement, though. You said, I didn't really know what I was responsible for in the Sandler business as I walked into it. I had to kind of learn as I go. And how did that look? How long did it take? Are you still learning that type of stuff? Or was it, hey, in 6 months, I found like I was like up to speed, at least to get us to where we needed to be short term? Like, what was that journey for you as far as learning?
I think we're always learning. We're always trying to be better. So we'll never know it all. That's for sure. I do help some other franchises as the wife a little bit to get them organized. And yeah, I'm still learning, but I have learned a lot. That's for sure. And it probably took a good 6 months to a year to kind of get my groove on and understand what I'm doing, knowing how to do certain things and learning the ins and outs of everything.
But one of the things that I know she picked up quickly was you have to do some of your own marketing. We have to get our name out there locally, figuring out stuff like Google searches, figuring how to make our web page work for us as a company here in Winnipeg took modification. And there's a lot to learn about how the sitelet functioned and how other kind of how we gather leads or gather reports back from our customers. And just started to pick that up. And I think she's become a huge knowledge base at Sandler for all of this stuff because she's had to, of course, to learn it for me and for our business. And now she's this big asset.
And she's Obi-Wan Kenobi now, right? I'm trying to get you a raise there, Heather. So I'm throwing these things out for you. Because you should get a raise as part trainer too. I'll throw that in later, but I just kind of planted for you now. Yeah. So you said always growing. And I love both of your insights. I know you're talking professionally, but just being part of Sandler and what we do, would that be true on your personal side as well? Just the growth?
Definitely. I think the disc for sure has helped us as a couple know each other and how to communicate with each other. And then obviously professionally knowing where our roles are.
The structure that Sandler brings. I mean, you have to have a playbook, and that playbook is not just about here's what we do during the work days. There has to be this transition to, our time as well as a couple. So I learned things from like our coach, John Trump. He's like, you got to take a moment at the end of the day to separate yourself from these two worlds, because if you just slam them together all the time, it's going to be really difficult to keep both going in a healthy way.
So let's talk about that, because that's a list of things I wanted to ask you. I always observed. I watched Sandler, family-owned business. I was the non-family member, so it was like business 24/7 as far as I could tell, really. And I think the challenge was, how do you separate personal life? And, for those that have children, it just even becomes more complicated, right? You've got your personal life and then you've got your business life. Have you guys really kind of worked out? And did you have, like, I'll call integration on, was it muddled in the beginning where there wasn't any separation? Or did you just start off by saying, okay, at such and such a time, we're not talking about X, Y, and Z? Like, how did that morph for you?
I think we did struggle a little bit at the beginning, talking business at the dinner table, where possibly, we bore our son to death, of course, with Sandler. Yeah. So we've learned to kind of shut the door at 6 o'clock. We go for our walks with the dog and talk business, of course, midday if we need a break. And that's where we get a lot of our good ideas for marketing.
Yeah.
But we do tend to be able to shut it down at like 5 or 6 in the evening. It took a little bit of work at the beginning, but no, that was definitely not an issue for us.
And you can choose which events you start to use in order to build your client base, right? So you don't I ended up making a choice where we weren't going to do a lot of evening events. So evening is for family, right? So you can make that choice. And while there will be the exceptions from time to time, or you got to go to a dinner here and there, for the most part, networking is with business people in the day. That's kind of how this business works anyway. So you can really focus on finding the right people that are active in the right hours. Pay time is during the day to meet people and use it that way.
What I'm in charge of setting is networking up. So if he gets on my nerves, I do sign him up for networking in the evening.
Yeah, I'm networking 5 days in a row, honey. Exactly. Exactly. And if you don't change, it's 5 days next week too. Yeah, I understand. I get it. So I just think I agree. You're walking the dog and here come the genius attacks, right? Because you're really not in the moment. And that's why I ask, because it would be a challenge for me as an example, because, I get these thoughts after the fact and then it makes sense to me and I come back ready day 2. And for me not to be able to kind of talk about that would be hard for me, probably, actually. But at the same time, it would destroy my personal relationship because otherwise it'd be business 24/7. It's just, so I'm glad you guys have figured out that mix. For those who are not in your position, right? They're just kind of looking, like, how many hours are you guys working in a given week? And obviously it changes, but to kind of talk us about what your business life looks like as far as hours and things of that nature.
I think I think that's one of the big benefits of both being in the same company. One of the things that we get to do because we both work for Sandler is we get to manage our schedule. So our vacation schedule, super easy to manage. We don't have to go to somebody else and worry that they don't get the time off and you can't do this or that you want to do. So from a lifestyle perspective, I think we've really seen the benefits of that freedom. From the day-to-day, I think we as a team probably put each in just slightly less than a solid 40 hours a week. We don't put a crazy amount of hours in, but collectively we can build a business that is very functional. If I was doing this by myself, then I think I would probably have to be 60, 70 hours a week. I think that would be tough.
Yeah, but I do have to mention us starting kind of about the same time does help, because it wasn't just his baby, it was our baby together. Because I think a lot of couples, if say the husband buys a business and 5 years later he's struggling and he wants some help, I've heard from other couples that that's really difficult because he's the boss and that's his baby. And he knows how to run things and you don't yet. So I think starting together really helps with that, with being a team as opposed to boss and an employee.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about it, but now that you say it, it's pretty obvious, right? Because you're going into it 5 years later. It says, hey, I just need you to do this. That's why I brought you here. Just do this. Whereas now it's a we, because you guys started around the same time. Not that it wouldn't have been a we before, but it's just hard if you've been doing it for 5 years to kind of slow down and start over by explaining everything known to mankind. You're just simply saying, please just finish this task for me. Just honestly, just finish the task. So I get that. I don't know if it probably wouldn't have worked any other way, quite frankly, long term, that probably wouldn't have flown for sure. So let's fast forward. Certainly Clint, who's a rock star within Sandler, will continue to sell and train and do what he does. Now I heard you move into the classes, you're training without training because we can't call you a trainer yet, I guess. But where do you see yourself morphing, if anywhere else, other than, do you see yourself doing some more client stuff? Do you see, hey, this is where I am, I love what I'm doing? Or do you see yourself kind of doing different things within the organization as you kind of project out a year or two?
The questions was for me, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. I know I love Sandler, and I really love the way that they teach and that how they support the clients and us as a whole. And yeah, I'm 100% in. So bring on some more clients, or I got like working with Sandler Network.
You're going to train? Is that what you're going to do?
Train. You know, there's
This is the awkwardness.
yeah, there's certain things that we're good at and certain things that like Clint is a rock star at training. And I mean, I pipe in and possibly correct or banter with him, but as for training clients, I do, I mean, maybe customer service. I just don't, I don't see myself there.
We'll find the crack soon. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So I always, when I was working for a franchisee, I was a salesperson. And I was young. I just felt like there's no way I deserve to be up there. This guy's a rock star. Who am I, you know? And so I would be Johnny Carson's sidekick. I would jump in occasionally, say a couple things, do a couple things. Next thing you know, I was talking for 15 minutes, then it was a half an hour, and then he got sick one day, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, you know, and I panicked, but, you know, everyone was like, hey, thumbs up. Once I broke through my own stuff, it was just awesome because let's face it, you live and breathe this stuff for 5 years, you know how many hours that is? So I'm sure they'll be blessed to have you whenever you decide it's time, I'm sure there's a lot of correcting, as you said now. So that's a full-time job already. I heard that word correcting. So let me just shift gears because I know we're up against our time. Is you said your son is sick and tired of hearing of Sandler. So let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of us, our children have grown up in the Sandler network. Like I have 5 children. They've been exposed to Sandler day one, not knowing it's Sandler. Quite frankly, it's not, they didn't know what it was. But how old first is your son?
He's 19, almost 20. He's a swimmer here in Manitoba with the university team. And we actually did put him in the training, in the Essentials program. And he enjoyed it. He really, I think he looks up to what our lifestyle is and how we blend our work and personal life. And he's just like, well, I don't want like a 9-to-5 sit down at the computer job. I want to do what you guys do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we do have a possible Sandler person. Maybe we'll see.
I think he's a close to being a professional swimmer, right? So if you think about an athlete, someone who has to have the right behaviors, the right attitude, and the right techniques, he's seeing that from his coach, and he's seeing that from the results that he gets in success in the pool, right? So he's got that same model that they focus on, mindset, on business. And I think it's interesting to watch him grow as he starts to kind of make those connections that, you know, it's not just I go out and I lift lots of weight and I swim really fast. But all these themes will eventually kind of come back together. So I think he's just on the verge of making those connections, and I'm curious to see where he decides to go for himself.
It's awesome. I just, of course, you know, as you know, at our last conference, we gave, I think it was 4 30-year awards out that have been here for 30 years within our system, which means their kids grew up in that system if they do have children. And even if they don't enter the business, I think the greatest gift is just, you know, the way that you talk, the way that you think, the way that you process information. They've watched and observed for all that time. I think it's the greatest gift that will keep on giving for years to come, you know, because they were exposed to it in some way, shape, or fashion. I made my children sit through the Essentials program as well. And then I said, it's up to you, but that's not an option. You will sit through the program. And 2 of the 5 use it every single day. The other ones, they use it occasionally, but they're nurse, you know, or an engineer. They didn't see the value in it. But I think it's one of those things that's super special. You know, it's nice to work with your spouse, and it's really cool to see the benefits that 50,000 people a year at Sandler go through, that your children are seeing like firsthand, that it's just growing. And you know, kudos to you. You take that athletic mindset and discipline and then apply it to what they've seen you two do, I think he's got a way better chance of super success than most. So that's awesome. Last question I have for you two guys. Any thoughts that you would be able to share with people that are looking at the business, thinking about a family, anything pop up like, hey, if I had to think about one thing that I could share, or two things that I could share, either something that we've talked about that you just want to reiterate, or maybe something we hadn't talked about that we should, anything come to mind for either of you?
For me, it's getting outside the comfort zone. It's you can't get reward unless you make a risk, take a chance, and believe in yourself to do something.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the big themes that we take from Sandler as unless you learn how to fail, unless you're willing to fall on your face a few times and get back up, you're not going to get yourself to a new place that you're really proud of. And for me, and I think for us, is we're just honored to be a part of the network that gets to share these incredible insights with other people, and we're so honored to be able to work with others who then grow. And it's like this constantly sharing and constantly growing circle. And I get to learn from clients quite often, and they get to learn from me. And it's very, very rewarding. So I don't think I would have been able to predict that aspect of it, but it really does kind of have this full circle feel when you get it rolling.
Very cool. Heather, any additional thoughts?
I think he's summed it up nicely. Like we really learned a lot from sailing and taking risks that way in the Caribbean, where we just dumped our personal life and took off to the Caribbean, and knowing, because I'm not a risk taker, not usually. And when we did that sailing adventure, that started my risk taking, and it continued on to let's do this together and take risks. Of course, it's not rainbows and it's not
unicorns.
Rainbows and unicorns. It's not rainbows and unicorns all the time. I mean, we have our discussions, but with the Sandler techniques, not only do we learn the tech questioning strategies, the upfront contract, we use that in business, but we also use that personally. It's quite funny when Ty, he goes, "Oh, you're Sandlerizing Dad," or vice versa. He can see it, and we see it in each other, but we respect each other enough to, that worked.
Yeah.
That technique worked.
When we get, you can't see the tech.
Yeah, well, it's genuine. It's not a technique, and it's not manipulation. It's just trying to get to whatever the truth is.
It's communicating in a respectful, trusting manner to each other personally as well. And the disc, knowing your spouse's disc profile, even before you start Sandler, and understanding it or even not even during Sandler, I think everybody should do disc as a couple.
Yeah, 100%.
Know how to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I agree. I think, in closing, Clint said something that I think our clients say to us. When I bought Sandler from you, Clint, I didn't realize what Sandler really meant, or the impact that Sandler would have on my life, both professionally and personally. Clients have no idea until they really are in it. They think they're coming in to close more sales, or I'm coming in to be a better sales leader, or whatever the case might be. But you end up leaving just a much better human. And I think that's true with people looking at the business. You're looking at it as a business, like, should it be this, or should I go back into corporate, or should I just go over here and do a yogurt shop as an example? But the personal growth and watching other people grow, it's so humbling. I mean, I have to say, it is so humbling to have people come up to you in your community. You don't have to hide, like, oh my gosh, I hope they still love me. They come up and say, you changed my life. Listen, you helped me. My kids can go through college, university without debt. Hey, I can pay for my kid's wedding, or whatever they're saying to you. And my wife is like, who is that person? I'm like, I didn't pay them. I mean, it's just, Sandler's awesome. Sandler's just the greatest gift I've not experienced anything else in my professional career. I just haven't done it. So the fact that you brought it up, that was very cool. All right, everybody. Listen, we've got Clint and Heather joining us from Winnipeg. I will say you do not have to go to a year in the Caribbean before you decide to buy a Sandler franchise. So that's not a prerequisite. Let me just say that up front. But super special. Thanks for having you guys on the show today. Really appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. Appreciate you. For more information on Sandler franchising opportunities, go to sandler.com/franchising. And don't forget to subscribe to the No Guts, No Gain podcast on your favorite app.